Well, I think we can go ahead and get our meeting started. Steve, you want me to be the MC today?
Yes, please do.
Okay. So I guess we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 1:04. Board members present, myself, Dave Smizer, Ron Eldridge, Steve Royal. Brian Strand is here as our board attorney. Patrick is here as our financial advisor. Who else do we have? Carla is here. And I think that's it. So first order on old business was the minutes from 1/29/21, our January meeting. Did everybody have an opportunity to take a look at those?
Yes.
Any questions, issues, anything that needs to be changed? If not, I will take a roll call vote to approve those minutes. Dave, yes. Ron?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Okay, approved. And we will move on to our next item under old business. I think I didn't note, but maybe I should for the record. Elizabeth Hannon is not present for today's meeting. She's the only other board member currently until we get to our next item on the agenda, which is a board vacancy. So we were able to, Dobie was able to get with Elizabeth and Ron, and they were able to watch him count the votes. And it would appear that we had 3 members running for the board. The other open spot for the, what's the word I'm looking for? The active members, the election for the other active member for the board. We had 3 members that ran, Sarah Links, Oliver Marquez, and Jeremy Hale. And the information we all received from Dobie was that Jeremy Hale won with 11 votes. Sarah Links got 6. Oliver Marquez also got 6. So Jeremy Hale would appear would be our new member. Dobie suggested that we make a motion, which I will do. I will make a motion with a roll call vote to adopt and accept the results of the canvass as set forth in the memorandum of election results. So I will make that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call vote. Dave is a yes to accept. Ron?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. We have accepted the results. The election winner would be Jeremy Hale, the newest trustee for the Urbana Police Pension Fund. I have not contacted him to make him aware of that. I will do so. And it looks like we'll have a full board finally next time. Although we might be coming up on another election. I don't have it in front of me, but I think I might be up. Is it me or you, Steve?
I think it's you. I think it's your turn.
Okay. So here we go again. Yeah, it'll be my turn this summer, but I will get with Dobie and everyone to get that process started again. I guess just to share, my intention is I kind of was wishy-washy a little bit on whether I was going to run again. Like everyone, we've all got full plates and, you know, this high-paying job might not be really at the top of everybody's agenda. But I think I'd like to run for one more term to at least get us through. I'd like to, you know, if I win the election, stay on until at least we move all of our funds to the state and kind of move on to the next phase. So that's just where I'm at with that. So anyway, I will let
Dave, on Jeremy's thing, what would his term end then? You know, you have that in front of you?
Brian, do you have an opinion on this? I believe Dobie has previously told us that regardless of when he's elected, it goes by a set term. So he might be actually, since we're almost a year behind, he might be due again for next summer.
That would be correct. If it's a vacancy that he needs to fill, it would go through whoever was in that spot before through their term, and then you'd have to do elections again. Unfortunately, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. So we'll have him for a year, and hopefully in these 4 meetings coming up, we can get him to stick around again. Or yeah, we'll go from there.
All right.
So moving on to new business. First item on the agenda, public participation, being that there are no members of the public. I have not received any emails asking me to read anything in. Does anyone else have anything they would like to add, or did anyone else get any contacts regarding public participation?
No.
No. Okay, moving on. Next item on the agenda, Chris Welch's retroactive pay. Elizabeth, it's my understanding, well, she's not here today, she has been working with this, on this with both our attorney. Brian, I don't know if you had anything to do with this or if this was someone else in the firm that was dealing with that. And then,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I do have, she did send an email a couple weeks ago
Okay.
that his last day on pay was, looks like August 16th of 20. So his effective date for his pension would be August 17th of 2020. Have you guys, is he getting paid right now?
He has been, Carla, you can confirm, he's getting his monthly paycheck, but we owe him some retro pay, and that was the item
Yes,
that we were going to talk about on the agenda. Elizabeth, I spoke with her about it, and she mentioned that she wanted to get confirmation from our attorney and Chris's private attorney to make sure everybody was on the same page as far as the dollar amount before she sent out that retroactive pay. I haven't seen that number, but that's what we're waiting on, I believe.
Just let me check the email real quick. All right, so the email we got from Elizabeth was that she confirmed at those dates. So he would be effective August 17th of 2020.
17, 20. Yeah, and so that up through the date of the hearing that we had for him, we would owe him. Carla, do you have any insight on the number, or you gotten any direction from Elizabeth on how much that's going to be? She said she wanted the board
I
to
think Ron
approve.
Eldridge knows how much it is. We do know how much it is per month, and now that we have a decent date, we should be able to move forward.
Yeah, my only question, David, his salary didn't change, did it, from August of 20 to when we calculated it here recently in March? I think, wasn't it the same pay?
I believe so, but I'll double check that.
I think it was the same pay, in which that case, let me tell you what it would be. Okay, I have a total of $26,381.42. He's currently being paid $4,089.12 a month. We started that in March 1st. So we would owe him that $489.12 for all of September, October, November, December, January, and February. That's 6 months. And so you multiply that $4,089.12 by 6, comes out to $24,000 some dollars. And then we owe him for those days in August, 14 days in August. That's $1846.70 for a total of $26,381.42.
Okay,
Ron, how many days in August?
I've got 14.
But if his last day on city payroll was the 16th, you've got a
17?
fence post there, I think. It'd be 31 minus 16, it'd be 15 days.
Yeah, it would be 15 days, Carla, including the 17th, yes.
Yeah,
So we'd get an extra $131.90.
So,
I'll give you a new total here.
okay,
26,513.32.
$26,513.32 for retro pay to make him whole.
Yep.
Okay,
and do we know if there's any kind of problem with the attorneys on that?
well, that was a question I was gonna bring up. Brian, any idea what do you think?
Nothing on my side, but I might need to check with his side to make sure there's no argument. So if you give me a minute, let me reach out to him and see where we're at with it.
You mind if we go ahead and continue on?
No, go ahead. Do your thing while I make a call.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, next thing on, we have got 2 Quildros in progress. First one being Mike Metzler. So we have, and Brian has been involved in these, been very helpful in getting us, make sure we're getting these properly filed. We have Mike Metzler's Quildro. It has been accepted. Well, we need to approve it at the meeting. I have got it here. Brian has looked at it. I don't know if he now I got him doing 2 things at once. Brian, are you still there on this one? Probably on the phone. I've got all the correspondence. There's no question regarding the acceptance of it. Everything looks good. For the Metzler Quildro, the only thing we are now waiting on is we've accepted the Quildro, but we need to wait for a consent to issue, or we have no calculation order. So the Quildro is good. We are waiting on a calculation order to actually make an alternate payee.
I believe that is correct. It's Brian Labardi in our office that does all the.
Oh, you know what? You're
Give
right.
me one. Give me one sec. I'm trying to make a call.
Do we have address and contact information for his soon-to-be ex? We can start.
Patty, I've got names, social security numbers. I do have an address and contact information for her. Yep.
Okay, so at some point we can get direct deposit authorization and any
Right,
kind of W-4P that we need from her.
right. So, yeah, well, I guess that'll be coming with the calculation order. Or
You
once
know-
we get the calculation order, we can reach out to her and have her fill out that.
You know what, I just pulled it, I pulled up the file. It looks like Brian Labardi from our office sent his ex-wife a letter on April 27th. So obviously we have not had a response from that.
Right, yeah.
Yep. So we're waiting for the calculation order. But after that, we should be good to go once they send it back to us.
Great, yes. So that's that one. Yeah. Carla, I've got the $50 filing fee for that one, so I will put that down on your desk. So Metzler is in progress. Similarly, Bain, Quildro is also in progress. We have reviewed the preliminary information that was provided by his attorney as to what they're going to put in the Quildro, but we do not yet have a signed Quildro on file for him. He is a current member, so I think the calculation order, should there be one, is going to come further down the line anyway. So waiting on that one. Next item on the agenda, Jeff Steinberg resignation. Jeff Steinberg resigned effective 3/25/21. He joined the board, or he joined the department in December of 2010. So he's got a little over 10 years on. He resigned in good standing. He left the department, family, for family reasons. His wife took a job out of state. He left, like I said, in good standing. I don't think there would be anything that would stop him from coming back if at some point things change. Currently, he's vested with 10+ years on. He plans on leaving his pension contributions with us. At this time, he's made no, he said nothing about withdrawing any of his funds. So I guess he would be considered a deferred pensioner at this point, if he'd like to wait until he's 60 to begin drawing.
Hey,
So,
Dave,
yeah,
do you think, or maybe Brian could say, should we read into the record what his contributions have been to date?
Might as well, just as a CYA. And then when we get closer towards his deferred retirement, we'll go ahead and put in the figures. You know, in case there's some sort of debate down the road, I don't really like to enter official final figures, and we're not going to do a decision in order, obviously. But yeah, you might as well just read them.
that's a great idea. I don't have them with me currently.
All right.
Carla,
Well-
Carla, either I can figure them here right now if you want, or if you have it there quicker.
You know what? Along with
I'm not signed on at the city. I do have the number at some place.
All right, well, let's compare, make sure we got the right number then.
maybe just table it for this point then, if just to make sure that we measure twice and cut once.
Okay, so I'll just table that and we'll add it to old business at the beginning of our next meeting. Just throw that number in there, and that way we have a record of it in the minutes.
And then speaking of old business, I tried to call Welchell's attorney. He's gone for the day.
Mhm.
Do you want to just take, I mean, I want him to get paid, obviously, but he is currently getting paid. Do you want to table that till the next meeting so that we can, in case there's any argument over the numbers? Or, yeah,
I don't, here's what I think. I don't think he's gonna argue that's too much.
right, right.
So I would suggest that we do the date that we think it is, the amount that we think it is. If he can prove to us that we made an error in calculating it, then we'll pay him the difference. But
You
I
know
think
what,
that's the right number.
Ron, you know what? That's probably a good idea. And until we issue the final decision and order, which is 99.9% done, maybe that would work because I want him to get his pay. You know, the city didn't contest. It's not one of those issues. So whatever you guys feel comfortable with.
I'm very comfortable with that. In fact, I'd be more comfortable. I'd like to get him something because, you know, we don't meet but quarterly. And if we're,
All right, that works too.
so I guess with that being said, should we make a motion? And should this be a vote to pay him? So,
Yeah, it would be with a roll call vote.
okay. So I will make a motion to pay Chris Welchel his retroactive pay that we believe to be the amount of $26,513.32. Is there a second?
I will second that.
I'll
Mel.
second it.
Okay. Roll call vote. Dave is a yes. Ron?
Yes,
Where'd you go, Steve? There you are. Are you? Go ahead.
Yes,
Okay, motion passes. So we will get that prepared and sent out to him. And like we said, if there's a discrepancy and we need to get things finalized further, we can do that. Next item on the agenda. This one's kind of bittersweet. Karen will be leaving us. Karen has done, she's going to be retiring from the city of Urbana later. Well, I think next month will be her official retirement date, sometime next month. And therefore, she's going to resign from her duties as recording secretary that she's held for how long? Ron and Steve, you guys have been around longer than I have.
she was doing it when I started, so long time.
So a long, long time. So I guess that means we should probably look for someone who would be willing. Two of her biggest duties would be she keeps track of the minutes and gets the agenda ready for the new meetings, and she does all of the filing for members of the fund. Does anyone have any ideas? Oh, hi, Carla. Anyone know of anyone that would be interested or willing to take on those duties?
Well, Ron and I are probably a little bit removed from the day-to-day operations of the police department, so I guess that question should probably fall on your shoulders if you know of anybody that might be interested, that you could bend their arm and maybe get them to help us out.
is that do you think that's obviously a good thing? Is that a requirement that they be work for the police department or even work for the city?
I don't see why it would. I mean, the biggest requirement in my mind would be that it'd be somebody that would have access to the files, like maybe somebody who can get in the building, has a key to the room. Hey, Carla, how are you doing?
Well, it's a possibility. I would like to suggest that whatever we do there, that if possible, we make it a city employee, because then we get out of the business of doing W-2s and submitting the taxes on the 941s and you know, that seems kind of silly for one employee.
Yeah.
It made more sense when it was also you and me, but we're down to one now, so that would be nice if it became part of the city package.
Well, I wish Elizabeth was here. Maybe we'll table it until the next meeting.
Did Karen have any suggestions? Karen Snyder?
Karen, unfortunately, she hasn't been working in the building. She's been working from home, so I haven't had an opportunity to really speak with her at all. I know April is doing the fire pension, and I've done my best to try and that's a hard no. She's not interested in that. So I don't know. I kind of wanted to see how you felt, Carla, something that you'd want to take on. I could ask some other people in the building, in the department. We could find someone. I can limp along until we get somebody in place. You know, I guess I'll work on getting some minutes put out for this meeting and such.
I don't have a problem with it. But like I said, I think as far as ease of operations for the pension fund, having one person that you're paying a small amount of money to every month is kind of a pain in the rear.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So I would say we talk to Elizabeth about it and see if some proper trade can be made there.
I mean, if you're talking, because you're right, and it's taking me back to when we kind of moved things around, and
Mhm.
because you're on city payroll, working on pension purposes and so forth. Okay. Yeah, this is probably a conversation that we need to have with Elizabeth, so I think it's something that we will go ahead and table for the moment until she can get back. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to, any ideas before we move on? Okay, with nothing.
Dave, I have no ideas, but I would like to officially thank Karen for all of her years of getting us, keeping us organized and getting.
You know,
everything.
absolutely. And I did that via email because I said, I don't get to see you anymore but thank you for everything that you've done, because it has been, you know, an extra duty that she's had for decades, on top of her work, normal work here at the department. So that doesn't go unnoticed, very much. Moving on, financial report, Ron, did you?
Yeah, I think I sent out the report to everybody except for Patrick a couple days ago. And I'm not going to spend much time. There's really nothing to highlight. We're in compliance with all of state laws and our investment policies. The equity investments have done so well. Patrick's going to probably take credit for that. They've grown to about 64% now of our fund, and 65% is a loss. So we're still okay. They have the equities, and by my calculation, as of then, this is all as of the end of March for our first 9 months of our fiscal year. They've returned 30% in total for the first 9 months. They were 8.7% for the first 3 months. That would be like July, August, and September of 2020. Then it grew the next 3 months at the end of December, it grew to a return of 24%. And now for the first 9 months, it's grown to a return of 30%. So unless we have an incredible fall off here, it's going to probably be the best year for equities that I can ever remember.
Oh, we'll hit our benchmark
Yeah,
and then some.
the significant activity in equities was the sale of the 1.5 million in the Vanguard 500 index in January that we approved at the last meeting. Garcia and Madison, they're both still very, very active in buying and selling U.S. governments and corporates. Garcia purchased 20 during the quarter and sold 27 for a net increase of 1.1 million. Madison purchased 10 and sold 2 for a net increase of almost $1 million. So changes and benefits in the quarter, we had a few. Everett Kruger passed away in January without any dependents. Joel Sanders retired in March, and had we proved all his information yet? Probably not. Did we at the last meeting? Probably not, since we didn't know exactly when he was going to retire.
Yeah, I don't think we did.
I'll give you the information for him right now that can be read into the minutes. His retirement date was March 12th, 1921. He was 52 years of age that time. He had 22 years of service. So that calculates to 55% of his salary, which is equal to $5,095.09 per month. And his first raise would be in September of 2023, and that would be a 7.25% raise. And we talked about Chris Welchel was rewarded his duty disability in April, effective back in August. And we also, of course, had the our normal 3% cost of living increases that everyone received in January. And the only there are no known changes in benefits that I know of for the next quarter for April, May, or June. So that's my report. I'll try to answer a question if anybody's got one.
Ron, Everett's ex died the same time as he did. So
She was
she's
divorced. She was divorced anyway,
Yes.
so she was not entitled to anything. But
yes,
Yeah.
yes, but her benefits also terminated.
pretty unusual, yeah.
Yeah, so her benefits would have terminated because of his death, because she was getting, that was based on a Quildro. But she ended up passing away on the same day that he did. I mean, what are the odds? But
Yeah.
so, and then his current wife gets no benefit because they are married. They became married after Everett left the department. But she was aware of that. They had planned for that, so it wasn't a big shock to her. I don't have any questions. I think usually we go ahead and I'll make a motion that we accept and file Ron's quarterly financial report. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay, roll call vote. Dave is a yes. Ron?
Yes.
Steve?
Steve is a yes. And then also again, Ron, thanks for all the work you put into that.
Very much appreciated. Moving forward, investment presentation. Patrick, we turn it over to you.
Okay. Does everyone have the report? I can share my screen if you don't.
I looked at it, but I don't have it in front of me.
Let me see if I can pull this up then real quick. Let's see here. Share. Can you all see this?
Yep.
All right. Well, yeah, Ron kind of stole my thunder, but I'll talk about it anyway. First quarter has been good. Trailing 12 months were great. This is just some information kind of about different sectors of the economy. But at the bottom of the page, second from the bottom, right down here where it says Morgan Stanley and Co. economists expect U.S. GDP will be up 12.4% in the second quarter of 2021. So that's a huge number for gross domestic product. And we're calling for an 8.1% GDP growth in Q4 of 2021. You know, the street's calling from anywhere from 6 to 8.5%. So things have been really coming on fast with the overall economy. There's a couple things that are a little scary about that. One is we have 10 million less people working, producing things right now than we did a year ago. And that causes pricing pressure. So we'll talk about that in a second. I'm going to go to the next page here. You know, just a couple things from this page. We really think that almost every sector of the economy is being flooded with money from the stimulus packages and from the fact that as people feel more comfortable going and doing, as the vaccines get closer and closer to having us officially say there's herd immunity, that stimulus alone of the pent up demand for travel, for group events, et cetera. So it's just going to make the overall economy explode. I'm going to take us off this page. What that did to assets in the last year is Ron outlined through March. If we just look at the 1 year number, you know, the global equities were up over 55%. U.S. equities, with the S&P being the largest, up 56.4. You know, down the line, just really, really good numbers. The only area where we're seeing pressure is in fixed income. And that's really, you know, Ron talked about all the changes going on in those portfolios. Really what they're doing is looking to take advantage of pricing areas where they are able to sell some bonds at gains and buy some other ones that they think will provide some growth. So the bond managers have done a good job of actually adding value while we're having negative pressure on pricing. But if we have rising interest rates, that's even going to cause more pressure on the bonds. So they're keeping the duration short. Fiscal policy is different this time. So this is a chart I showed in January, and we just haven't updated it yet. But this is basically showing U.S. headline fiscal balance as a percentage of GDP, and you can see the negative number there. That's even growing by more now with the most recent stimulus. And then if the infrastructure bill was to go through, it would even grow further, meaning that there would be more negative numbers on the balance sheet. What that has done is increase the M2 money supply. And what M2 money supply is money that you and I can get to quickly. Okay, so this is your savings account, your money market account, your checking account, and maybe something that you might have purchased at 6 months or under. So you bought a short-term CD or a treasury, which right now, you know, the only time we're doing it is where people want to make sure the money's insured because the returns are so minute, it doesn't really make that big of a difference. But what it has done is it's pushed this number to a level. You can see this chart goes back to the 60s, and you can see other inflationary periods of time where this grew. And this is, you know, what's happened here is all the printing of money by the Fed and you know, pumping that out into the economy has put money in people's pockets. And there wasn't anything to do with it for most of last year, except for order stuff online and, you know, go to grocery stores, et cetera, that people built up a lot of this money. And now more of it's coming on board. And this isn't just individuals, this is institutions. This is very much so inflationary. You know, everyone's saying that you know, inflation is only around 2%, but for many meetings I've been driving to, you know, just gas alone is costing me a heck of a lot more money than it did in any time in the last, you know, 5 or 6 years. So we're seeing that across the board. As this money gets spent, we'll even see that happen more. And then I'll go back to, we have 10 million less people working, producing goods and services. That means there's less goods and services out there. We're not even talking about supply chain disruption around the world, causing prices to go higher. We're not talking about the carbon impact of companies like Amazon and Google and Apple paying wood producers not to turn trees into 2x4s, disrupting that. You know, they can go out and buy acreages of land from International Paper and have them not turn it into that timber into planks or whatever they might be with that paper. And that reduces their carbon footprint, which helps them on a tax basis. So there's a lot of things at play that are really going to, I think, drive prices up even higher. And most of it shows up right here. I put Bitcoin in there because some people have asked me a lot of questions about cryptocurrencies and other currencies, and are they for real? And I think they are for real, and they're probably here to stay. Especially now that we're hearing about Wall Street firms coming up with crypto products to be able to sell. That makes them even more legit. What I would say is it doesn't take away the volatility of them. and a big change in cryptocurrencies are that they trade 24/7, meaning that last Saturday it dropped by 5% over the weekend, starting at like 2 a.m. And people come back and look at it on Monday, and they're like, "How did the cryptocurrencies go down?" And so I think from an investment standpoint, obviously it's not an investment we would consider here, but many people are moving money into it. And many people believe that it's a hedge against the US dollar with the amount of money that we printed, that, the dollar is going to go down in value. So I continue to believe you'll hear more and more about cryptocurrencies. I'm going to skip through this next one. This is probably the most important slide that I think we'll talk about. And this really is just kind of giving you an idea of where we're at. So this chart goes back to 1998, and the little yellow mustard color, that is the debit balances in margin accounts year over year net change. Okay, and the blue line is the S&P 500 in the valuation. So when it's up above zero and going high, these spikes here and here and here and here and here, the S&P is doing really well, right? So these are lower levels, and it's come up off those lower levels. This yellow bar below it, this is what is kind of concerning to me, is that this is where people can borrow against portfolios to either buy more securities, or in many cases, borrow against their portfolios to buy other assets. And you can see what happened in 2000, market peaked, this peaked, market came off. You can look out and see 06, 07, you see it coming up, and then margin debt peaks. Okay, people borrow to start buying things. More importantly, banks like ours, I'll just throw it out there, they were lending to people against their assets to buy homes. Do you remember that whole thing? And then too big to fail. So people actually start borrowing against their investments to either buy more investments or buy other assets. And then the market falls off. If you look at where we are right now with this yellow borrowing against accounts, right? It's at record high levels of people either borrowing to buy more stocks or borrowing against their stocks with low interest rate environment right now to go out and buy property or other things. I saw an email that came out from Morgan Stanley to clients about borrowing against their accounts. And I thought, here we go. You can borrow against your assets stay in the market. You not only now are you paying a bank for interest rates, but you also are still paying them fees on the stocks that you own. That's kind of where we're at right now. And I think that's a little bit scary, because what happens when you're borrowing against assets to either buy assets or borrowing against investments to buy a home is that when the investment prices go down, you either have to sell your stocks to cover, or you have to bring in cash. And you have to bring in more cash than what you had there because you borrowed to buy. So I think we're due for a pullback. And with all this money coming to the market and maybe this next stimulus, maybe it doesn't happen this summer, but we're really kind of equal weight the overall market right now. We think it's at the levels that it should finish the year out. It doesn't mean it doesn't go higher if things perform a little bit better, but stocks are at extreme valuations and borrowing against those stocks are at all-time highs. One last slide. Rate move is exposing the most expensive stocks as overvalued. So, probably many people heard of GameStop and what happened in the beginning of the year, and there were several other stocks that lots of money were flowing into. But the top 15% of stocks that moved in the last year, and you could bring up names like DocuSign or Plug, which is an alternative energy company, or Clean, which is another alternative energy stock, or you could bring up DocuSign, Peloton. A lot of these stocks DocuSign allows me to send paperwork to Steve to open up a new account, and he can sign it electronically. You know, they basically just ran up, and they had just unbelievable years. Well, they also were able to borrow at next to zero to finance growth, right? And when interest rates go up, that ability for them to borrow so cheaply, that cost goes up. And you can see since February, where we went from about 0.56 on the 10-year to about 163 is I think where we are now. All of those stocks came off, right? So stocks that are having to borrow to finance growth and are borrowing to finance growth are going to have to pay more to do that. And that's pushing the stock valuations down right now. And I think that's just one thing that, you know, a lot of people I've talked to have said, you know, well, you know, these stocks that have done so well, now that they're dipping, should we buy more? And you know, I don't think so. I think unless this comes back down to this level, these stocks are going to be under pressure. With that, I'll stop unless there's any questions about anything I talked about before we look at your portfolio, which shouldn't take long. Seeing nobody shake their head or ask anything. So if we look at the Urbana Police Pension Fund as of March 31st, 2021, the account valuation was just over 47 million at 47,188,000. We're showing about 67.35% of that in stocks. Ron takes the cash that we have between different managers and the cash outside of here, and that lowers it down below 65%. So, you know, you're good with state statute. It's just he's looking at kind of peeling the layers of the onion back and everything. Here we kind of group it all together no matter where the dollars are. Domestic equity makes up about 47%. As Ron stated earlier, we did take money out of the S&P 500. You know, really that was just a function of things had been so good. We took some money out just to pare it back. There's still $22,141,000 or $142,000 in domestic equities. Large cap makes up the bulk of that with $18,540,000 between the Vanguard S&P 500 fund and ClearBridge Advisors. ClearBridge is sitting on about $700,000 worth of cash. If there's a pullback, they will deploy that. If there was a cash need, we could take it from them without having to sell any stocks. Mid-cap equities have done quite well. You have about 1.7 million there. Small cap equities have done well also with 1.8. Developed international, much better since last summer. It's about 20% of the portfolio with 9,637,000 between developed markets, which are developed market internationals, whether it's Europe or Australia or Canada. That's Harding Loevner, John Hancock, and Oakmark make up 7,661,000. And then emerging markets between Harding Loevner and Virtus, just about at 2 million or 4% of the portfolio. Down in the fixed income, there's 15.4 million or 32% of the fund, which is hard to believe because when I started working with you, I think your account was about 10 million bucks. And now you have 15.5 in just fixed income. Madison has 13.5% at 6.3 million, and Garcia Hamilton has about 20% or $9 million. Garcia, if interest rates spike again, they're going to start moving out a little bit further in some of the bond duration. And one of the things that I think is important to note is, unlike bond mutual funds, you all with the pension fund have owned individual bonds in your bond sleeve, meaning that the Urbana Police Pension Fund owns every one of these bonds, so that if interest rates go up and we have to transfer these funds for consolidation, you're not going to have to sell them to move them over at a loss. Okay. Once they get to the state, that'll be their determination on what they do. But from our standpoint, these are easily transferable and the best things to own right now, given the current interest rate environment. I'll stop there if there's any questions. No? If we go to the next page, we just have the asset allocation by asset class on the left, by manager on the right. And you can see over on the top left, 45 plus 20 is 65. So we're right at about 65% if we look at it, which is pretty darn close where Ron said. We add the outside cash and you're fine. Plenty diversified. I think we've done a great job of diversification here. If we were able to get rid of the state statute right now, it'd be a great time to own some alternatives investments. We think that's a good place to go right now, whether it's real estate or commodities or some of the long short equity stuff. But we can't change that right now, so we won't worry too much about that. It's out of our control. But if we go to the next page and we look at returns, as of March 31st, 2021, our current quarter was up about 275. Fiscal year to date was up about 1861. Year to date, the same as current quarter. And then trailing 12 months is at about 33.5%. So great numbers. You can see the 3, the 5, 7, the 10, all above 7%, which is pretty darn good. If we go down on the bottom of the page, I'll just look at the trailing 12 months. You know, a year ago, the account value was 36 million. There's been $800,000 that was pulled out of the fund. So, you know, that's almost been neglected or negated by the income, which was 661,000. But the fund grew by 11,500,000. And that gives us a 47,188,000. So, you know, over $12 million worth of growth in the last year. I don't think any of us would have thought that if we went back to March of 2020, but it worked out that way and it feels pretty darn good. I'll stop there. Any questions? Hearing none. All of the individual managers look really good. You can see ClearBridge is a little bit below the S&P, but they're sitting on some cash. Hopefully they'll pick that up. Usually when things get a little ugly is when he looks really good. But S&P up 55, ClearBridge up 43, Vanguard Midcap up almost 70, Vanguard Small Cap up 85. Remember, we added both of those not too long ago. So great job by the board to do that. Our international managers, Harding Loevner, John Hancock, and Oakmark up almost 60%. Harding Loevner and EM and Virtus up 56. And then you can see we had some negative pressure in Madison on the short side. But Garcia over the last year still up 3%. So, you know, across the board, really, really good returns in every segment of the market. Any questions, comments? No? Hearing none. All right, so this is the one we wanted to hit 50 million before this thing gets consolidated. But you know, the green line is money that's come in the fund, and you can see all the way up till about 2016. You know, you weren't taking anything out of the fund. You know, and it's been kind of flat here to sideways. Hopefully that can flatten out over a longer period of time. And the difference between the two is the growth. So, you know, you're at 47 million, it's 14.8 of dollars in. So, you know, you can see that there's just been a huge amount, $34 million worth of growth going back to 01. So really, really good portfolio growth. One thing that I would say is, you know, even if we look at a year ago and it came back down, it's amazing to me, you know, how bad we feel during these periods of time when the market pulls back, and then, you know, you look 12 months out or 24 months out or a year out and it's grown. And even going back to the 08-09 financial crisis, this was when we just changed platforms. So don't pay attention to that. But this is where the market pulled back during the 08-09 crisis. And, you know, fortunately enough, you guys were adding money to the portfolio then. So what that does is it slingshots you up even higher. What I am concerned about is making sure that come the July meeting, we have a serious discussion about how much cash you have available for expenses going into the end of the year, with the unknown consolidation coming probably sometime October, November, December is what they're shooting for. So that's something for the next meeting. maybe we'll spend a little bit of time making sure that you have plenty of cash available for the 3 or 6 months. I would probably say 6 months of cash is more appropriate than 3, especially given the low yields in bonds. With that, I'll stop there.
So Patrick, or I guess Brian, you're the one with the state, you said probably Q4, they're going to start sweeping the money. Have they started taking money now from large funds, small funds? Which end are they going to start at, or how's that work?
They have not made no money has been taken yet. Fire announced that they want to do in October. However, since our last meeting or your January meeting, there was a lawsuit that was filed in Kane County seeking a preliminary injunction. No responses have been due yet. So quite honestly, we're not quite sure where it's going to go. It could either just slow it down, it could stop consolidation altogether, or it could go through. Obviously, the governor's got a substantial interest in this, so this might just be a prolongation of the process. So until we get the responses due, because they served multiple people and multiple, boards and whatnot, our suggestion to everybody is just to keep having Patrick invest fully. He's done a very good job. I can tell by his looking at the numbers here. But that's kind of where we're at. It's just kind of a wait and see, unfortunately.
Okay.
And the fire has moved along. So the police, where are they at in the process? Do you know?
They just hired a financial, like their head financial person. Fire, they're clipping along pretty quickly. Police, we're still moving on at kind of a snail's pace, but slowly but surely it's getting there.
I would just add to that. So the police did hire a CIO, a chief investment officer, and he had run, I believe it was either Plano or Dallas's police and fire fund down in Texas, and he'd come from Illinois. I want to say the school districts before that. And fire has moved along. They've hired a consultant a little bit faster than police. But as of this week, I've heard that there's some rumblings that there's a new bill in the House that talked about lobbyists, and some people are concerned about some of the board members being related to that, specifically maybe Brad Cole. So I think there's some other things that are in play. I know that passed the House that could slow some things down. And I've also had boards that have told me that until the lawsuits are over and until they're comfortable with the setup, they're not going to move their money during a lawsuit because where does it go? Who's in charge of it? What happens during that limbo time? So, I think there's a lot of things that with these lawsuits that if it's not expedited, which, as Brian pointed out, it's this seems to be something that was spearheaded by the governor's office in the state, and they want to get this accomplished probably before maybe even the next round of elections. That you would think it would move through fast, but as Dobie said, I was in a meeting with Dobie a couple of weeks ago. Who knows? I mean, does this go all the way to the Illinois Supreme Court and it takes a while, or is it something that happens quick? So, even with all that being said, if we go into the summer with the question of this money could be taken away, you're going to want to have 4 or 5 or 6 months worth of expenses, I think, available to you from a standpoint of interest rates are so low, we can take money out of bonds and it's not going to cost you a whole lot of money.
And I concur with what Patrick just said. Absolutely. And granted, you are permitted to have your own local bank account. So if that's what you need to do, and if the money's not serving you anywhere else, why not?
Yeah, I think we should have plenty of cushion just because we all know the state of Illinois.
Well, any other discussion on the investment presentation portion? If not, thank you, Patrick.
All right, guys. Hopefully, maybe July, we can meet for lunch or something.
That would be good.
That would be wonderful.
We want to make a motion to accept Patrick's report.
Sure, it sounds like you just did. So I'll second that motion. Roll call vote. Dave, yes. Ron?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Okay, Patrick's report accepted. Great. Next item on the agenda, changes to the investment policy. Are there any that need to be made?
I don't know of any. That's just our standard thing that we have every month to review it in case we decided to do something with investments that would throw a policy out of whack, but there's no changes, so.
Okay, moving on. Last item, sustainability investment policy statement. Anything new with that we need to discuss?
I'm not even sure what that is or who put that on. Must be
Okay.
Must be an Elizabeth thing.
It's not just me then, because I don't have any recollection of it either.
If I could add something there real quick, Dave.
Sure.
So there was some language that needed to be put into the investment policy statement. I believe we've gotten that language from Dobie, put it in the policy statement, and that was given to Elizabeth. And if you table it, you could review it at the next meeting. That's really that would be under, a change to the current investment policy. There's just some sustainability, and maybe Brian can add a little bit of information about that if he wants to.
Really, to that point, it was just a change in the state statute that is really just, it's like a nice warm hug. All you had to do was just add the language to your policy. It didn't mean that you had to change anything. Obviously, it's just telling you that you need to pay attention to where your funds are invested and their corporate governance and their ethics policies. But it's really for you guys, you're investing in funds that are very holistic and large. So all it's just telling you is that, okay, we'll take into account, the individual funds if that's what we're doing, but really there's nothing you need to do. Give yourself a pat on the back and you'll be fine.
One other thing, you do own a minority-owned money manager with Garcia Hamilton, and each year the state asks for us to record the number of searches and managers that we have that are minority-owned, and that was given to the board in December, and that kind of goes along with the sustainability inclusion in the investment policy as well.
Do we need to table it then should Elizabeth say anything, or have we completed the requirements? Do we know?
You've completed the requirements, but the language was added to your investment policy statement. So it would need to be reviewed by the next meeting and then, adopted, because that is a change to your policy.
All right, then I suppose we should table it.
Yep. And then just send me a copy, because I think I sent the language out for it after last meeting. So obviously I'm going to approve it because it was in the language I sent you, but just send it to me and then you guys could just formally sign off on it next time.
Okay. Okay. So those are all of the items on our agenda. that being said, oh, what time is it? Patrick, I'm still seeing yours. Time do I have? 2:12? There we are. Okay. I suppose I will, oh, we need to set a time for our next meeting. What day is fires? Do you know? Ron?
Yeah, July 30th was when the fire was meeting. That's the last Friday.
So July 30th, 2021. We'll set it again for 1 PM. I suppose at this point, we're just going to continue Zooming unless something changes hugely between now and then, we'll plan on another Zoom meeting. And anything else we need to take care of before we push the end button?
No, not that I know of.
Okay. Well, I guess it's what do I got? 2:13 according to my phone, 2:13 PM. I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, the last roll call vote. Dave is a yes. Ron,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.